Why the most toxic bosses always win. You are sitting at your desk, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird because you just saw the promotion list and his name is at the top again. It makes no sense. This is the man who spent the morning screaming at an intern until she cried in the break room, the man who takes 3-hour lunches while you drown in spreadsheets, and the man who hasn't had an original idea since 2012. You've done everything right, you've played by the rules, and you've stayed late until the janitor was the only one left to talk to. Yet he is the one moving into the corner office with the mahogany desk and the view of the skyline. Why does the universe reward the monsters while the saints are left cleaning up the mess? But then I saw the truth. I realized that the corporate ladder isn't a stairway to heaven, it's a predatory ecosystem. The Zalil boss doesn't win because they are better at the job, they win because they're playing a completely different game than you are. While you are worried about team synergy and emotional intelligence, they are operating on a primal frequency of pure, unadulterated dominance. I remember watching a CEO once, a man whose breath always smelled of expensive peppermint and cold ambition, as he systematically dismantled a junior manager's confidence during a Tuesday morning briefing. He didn't use facts or logic, he used silence. He would ask a question, wait for the stutter, and then just stare until the air in the room felt heavy enough to choke on. That was the moment I realized that for people like him, your discomfort isn't a byproduct of their management style, it is the goal itself. They thrive in the friction they create. We like to believe in a meritocracy where the hardest worker gets the crown, but that's a lie we tell children to keep them quiet. The reality is that the modern workplace is a theater, and your toxic boss is a master of the stage. They understand that perception is 10 times more valuable than performance. I watched a department head spend an entire month doing absolutely nothing except networking with the board of directors while his team worked 80-hour weeks to cover his absence. When the project succeeded, he didn't just take the credit, he framed the narrative so perfectly that the board thought he was a visionary leader who had empowered his subordinates. He didn't miss the internet or the work, he realized he was using his employees to build a monument to his own ego. That's when it hit me. The secret weapon of the toxic boss is the complete absence of an internal monologue that says, maybe I'm wrong. They are biologically optimized for power because they lack the empathy that acts as a brake system for the rest of us. When you make a mistake, you lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you've let everyone down. When they make a mistake, they immediately look for the person closest to them to pin it on. I saw a manager drop a multi-million-dollar account because he was playing golf during a client call, and by the end of the day, he had convinced the entire office that the failure belonged to a shy analyst who hadn't even been on the project. It was a surgical strike of gaslighting. He wasn't just mean, he was a psychological sniper. There is a disturbing realization you eventually hit. The system is designed to reward these predators. Organizations claim they want collaborative leaders, but when the quarterly results are down, they don't look for a nice guy who buys donuts on Fridays. They look for the person who is willing to cut 500 jobs without blinking an eye. This is the dark triad of personality: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, acting as a turbo boost for a career. I heard the hiss of the espresso machine in the executive lounge and noticed a man whose thumb was twitching in a perfect scrolling motion even though his screen was black. He was practicing his busy look. He wasn't working, he was simulating the aura of a man who is too important to be bothered by trivialities like human feelings. We are evolutionary programmed to mistake confidence for competence, and no one is more confident than a narcissist. If a man stands in a room and screams that the sky is green with enough conviction, half the room will start looking for a tint of lime in the clouds. Your toxic boss knows this. They don't have to be right, they just have to be the loudest. I witnessed a meeting where a boss completely ignored a 50-page data report and made a decision based on a gut feeling that was clearly wrong. Nobody corrected him. The silence was deafening. It wasn't because they were afraid, it was because his sheer arrogance had created a reality where contradicting him felt like a violation of the laws of physics. Then I saw it. The power wasn't his. The power belongs to the collective fear of everyone else in the room. We enable the Zalil boss because we are afraid of the vacuum their departure would create. We think, at least he gets things done, even if the thing he's getting done is destroying our mental health. I once worked under a woman who would send emails at 4 a.m. demanding immediate replies just to see who was loyal. If you replied, you were a player. If you didn't, you were dead weight. She wasn't looking for productivity, she was looking for disciples. She wanted a cult, not a company. And the terrifying part? The company gave her a massive bonus because her department had the highest output, ignoring the fact that her staff turnover rate was 70% every 6 months. The shock turn comes when you realize that you might be addicted to the drama they provide. There's a weird, sick adrenaline rush in surviving a day with a toxic boss. It's like a psychological Stockholm syndrome. You start to value their rare moments of praise more than you value your own self-worth. I saw a grown man, a senior engineer with 3 degrees, beam with joy because a boss who usually ignored him told his tie looked decent. It was pathetic, and it was me. I wasn't missing the respect. I realized I was using the boss's validation to escape the person I'd become, a person who had forgotten how to stand up for himself. The monster wasn't just in the corner office, the monster was the environment we all built. Ultimately, toxic bosses win because they are willing to do the things that make you feel sick to your stomach. They are willing to trade their integrity for a higher title. They are willing to sacrifice their family life, their friendships, and their soul for a seat at a table that is fundamentally broken. I smelled the stale air of a boardroom at midnight and saw a CEO staring at a spreadsheet, his face illuminated by the blue light of the monitor. He looked like a ghost. He had won everything, the money, the power, the fame, but he was sitting in a silent house because his children didn't know his voice. He hadn't escaped the Matrix, he had become its most dedicated prisoner, guarding a cell he built for himself. But here is the part nobody tells you. The win is a hallucination. They win the title, but they lose the ability to connect with anything real. They live in a world where everyone is a tool to be used or an obstacle to be destroyed. There is no peace in that victory. I watched a successful, toxic boss retire, and within a week, nobody remembered his name. The win was tied entirely to his ability to cause pain. Once the power to hurt was gone, he was just a lonely old man with a very expensive watch. He spent his whole life climbing a ladder only to find out it was leaning against the wrong wall. The game is rigged, yes, but you have to ask yourself if you even want the prize. You are still sitting at that desk, looking at the promotion list, and the anger is still there. Good. Use it, not to become him, but to realize that his victory is hollow. The Zalil boss wins because the system is a machine, and machines don't have hearts, but you do. You can choose to walk away from the theater. You can choose to play a game where the rules aren't written in blood and broken spirits. Or you can stay, and you can wait, and you can watch as the weight of their own ego eventually pulls them down. Because the higher they climb, the thinner the air gets, and eventually everyone has to breathe. Don't be surprised when they finally choke. The office light flickered once and then went dark.